everybody, and welcome back to Julie's Orchids. Thanks for tuning in again. So we're having a look here at a table full of babies. And it's been a while since we've had a check-in on the babies. So I thought we'd do just a quick little video today to go over two of the oldest flasks and give an update on some of those. I'll put a link here to some of the related video that are appropriate to these. I had another flask of Phal Babies, which I got at the same time as I got this one. I had 100% attrition rate on that. Every single one of those died. With these ones here, I had fairly high death rate, but the ones that have survived seem to be going on. Now, there's one thing that I have noticed that seems to be pretty universal with all orchid babies and not just specifically Phal babies. Even though I have more experience growing Phal seedlings, I do have some other non-Phalaenopsis types that I have grown from flask. And between the different genres of orchids that I've grown from flask, I do notice sort of the same thing. And I'm assuming this is probably true in the rest of the world in general, animal and plant, fungi, whatever that grows. There are a few of them that come out of the flask that are very strong, very robust, very large, and then there are some that are quite small, still like protocorm size. So it seems like everything kind of grows at different rates, and there are definitely some contenders that are much more vigorous to begin with, full stop, and that is what you're seeing before you here. So I'm finding that the initial large and robust seedlings from the flasks tend to be the ones that hold on and stay on the longest and the best between all of the ones that I've done, including the terrestrial orchids. It's been quite interesting running these little ones from flask, and I can tell you that it has really I can't say it's been a lot of hard work. It has been a lot of fiddly work and a lot of learning, and these are the ones that had the strength to make it through the learning process so far with me, and they're nearly 1 year old. So let's start with these ones. So these ones here were deflasked in December of last year. So these ones here are going up on almost 1 year out of flask. And as you can see, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of them left. I don't remember how many initially were in the flask. But I'm going to say roughly half have survived. And of the half that have survived, these ones all seem to be doing really pretty good. Now, I recently repotted these because you can see that we are in active new root growth, and now that we're coming into summer, so these should really start kicking off their growth. The one thing I'd like to point out is that I'm noticing, even though I did just up-pot these a few weeks ago, is that we've got fat roots grown right down into the pot on this one. Which is quite interesting because it seems like they're getting fatter the deeper they go into the pot, because they're seeming to start out quite skinny. And again, I apologize, these are still pretty depth. I watered yesterday. Again, we've got a new root growing out there. One or two of them, and I'll probably never be able to find them now, actually had the root trying to grow out of the bottom of the pot when I repotted it into these with the fresh media. There it is. So we've got this one's root all the way down at the bottom of the pot, and that's just fantastic. Now, what I like about these is that they have, you know, very, very pretty foliage, and they're also said to be fragrant. So that's the Phal philippinensis. So these are the Phal stuartiana typos, which were deflasked January of this year. So again, these are coming up on 1 year out of flask. And again, I'm going to say the same thing with these. Some of the bigger, more healthier looking ones immediately out of flasks are the ones that you see sitting before you today. The smaller ones and the protocorms all seem to have completely died off. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 9 plants here. Again, I'm going to say over 50% attrition rate on these. Now, keeping in mind that these are among my first 3 flasks, so I'm unsure if that's just standard. But for all of my flasks so far, that seems to be about the death rate, half die, half make it. And I've kind of run out of room for more flasks. So what I'm kind of doing is, with some of the orchid friends that I have in the different clubs, as they're deflasking things, I'm making swaps and changes to get some of the plants I need. So again, let's have a look at these. You can see that they're starting to put out new root systems, and they're quite happily growing their roots down into the soil. They're also starting to leave this is the very first leaf that it had when it came out of the flask, and those are dying off. Now that seems to be pretty standard, and this one here is also dying off, this leaf, and this one I'm waiting for it to just pull off. Now I'm growing these underneath quite high light, which is why they are so dark looking. But again, we've got roots. Again, we've got roots completely all the way down in the pot, and new leaf growths. And again, in Perth here, we're going from spring into summer, and I'm expecting, when the weather heats up and everything, that these particular ones will really start to take off and come into their own. So the plans with these ones is within the next, I'm going to say 6 to 8 months, I'm going to put these out for sale through the local orchid clubs here in town, because I just don't have room for all this many. And now the ones that I'm keeping, I have already taken out of these pots and put into my regular setup, and they're living amongst my shelves, and they seem to be thriving just as well as these. And I will say that out of all of the flasks so far, I'm choosing the single healthiest and most robust one that I'm keeping, and then I'm selling the rest away, which I think is fair, because I've taken the time to grow them on. And growing them from flasks is, I can't say tedious in a laborious way, it's tedious in a long-term sort of commitment kind of way. They're very sensitive to any salt buildup. Even with the reverse osmosis water, I find that the little tiny bit of salt buildup that just inevitably occurs, even when you flush the pots, burns the little leaves. So I've been going through and picking off the top layer and then putting a fresh layer of bark on these. But I want to keep these in bark, because I don't know who the people that buy them might want them set up in. Yeah, so that's a follow-up on the Phal Babies. Do stay tuned, because we are getting to the 1 year mark for a lot of the babies, and I'm just going to do quick little videos to say, hey, how they're doing. Some of them will be really quick on how their following ups were, like the Phal Babies, because they're all dead. But I can say all over in general, thus far, the first few flasks that I've gotten have had a 50% death rate in the first year out of flask. But you know, I've gotten the plants that I've wanted, and they're growing on. And it seems a bit of an expensive way to get a plant that you want, and a very long process to get it. But watching these little things grow and struggle to live, and you struggling to help them live, is really interesting. And then to see them grow on, and you just find you're just cheering them on, go on, you can do it, make that new root, or here, let me move this little bit of bark that's got some salt buildup off and away from your growth track. And I'm finding that by sitting and taking the time to do those, and looking at these things every single day, I've kept more alive. So they do require a lot of fiddling, but for the most part, these ones here, now they're getting the full wet-dry cycle, so they're not going to get watered again until next weekend when everything is completely bone dry. They seem to be just fine with that. We'll see if that changes come full hot, full on midsummer. They might still need their in-between Wednesday water because the heat and the dryness is getting ready to start here in Perth. So if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. A subscribe would be nice. And everyone have a great day.